Hello everyone, it's Red Gadget here, and today I'm with you for another video, and this time it's on how to shuffle your deck correctly. So the idea of the study was to just see how like what techniques of shuffling are the best in terms of having like a properly shuffled deck, so you don't get the cards clumped together or just getting as close to the theoretical like computer shuffle, right? Because ideally, before every match, you would prefer your and your opponent's deck to be shuffled like computer based, similar to how they do with like Rubik's Cube thing, where they like get computer shuffles and then they can solve that, right? So I think computer shuffling is the best. And how can we get our shuffling as close to the computer shuffle? So fully random shuffle can be done with the computer. It's not really random, it's like pseudo random, because again, nothing's truly random in this world. But still, the best thing we can do is with the computer. And so that's the idea behind the study. So me and Chess Prime did this study together. We coded this up in one evening. And yeah, so as I outlined here, this is like a place where you can code and write text. So I'm gonna walk you through this whole document that we wrote and the results we got. So yes, basically, we need to study the shuffling and the types of shuffling. So there's pile shuffle, cuts, and smash shuffle. I didn't know this prior to talking to Chess, but apparently, like smash shuffling is when you do like that. So when you do basically like when you smash one part of your deck into the other. And then there's pile shuffling, so that's splitting cards on the 8 or 4 piles, and then there's just cuts, right? And then there's fully random, which can be done computer generated. So what do we want to study? We want to study like randomness after shuffling for each of these techniques. And then of course the hypothesis would be that like we can as humans shuffle as close to the computers can. Now, yeah, that's the idea. These are some imports. By the way, this video is a bit more technical, so I apologize for that. I really didn't have a way to make this like into a presentation. It's really hard because there's a lot of code and a lot of theory that we need to discuss. But I'll try to simplify it and make sure that everyone should be able to understand. So some imports, just some libraries that we're going to use for later that doesn't matter. And then the constraints is just like the deck size, right? 40. That's just Yu-Gi-Oh! So fully random shuffle would be shuffling the deck by a computer. So this NP is basically a module that introduces some randomness, and then we use the shuffle method to basically shuffle the deck. So this, like if we could execute this on your opponent's deck and on your deck prior to the match and get the deck we want, like get the shuffle deck, this would be like the best way to do it. Now, of course, this is not possible, but we'll use this for a benchmark. So we'll use this as a benchmark for randomness. Now, there's pile shuffling. This is, I tried to formalize it as close as I can to, yeah, I try to get something formal, but effectively you're just like having 4 or 8 piles or any number of piles, and then you're like going in circles, basically modulo the number of piles, and then you just like glue them all together. So that's pile shuffling. I'm sure all of you know that, and this would be the code for that. And if someone's skilled with code, just make sure to also read this and like tell me if you see something wrong. But for the two of us, it seemed to be all right when we were coding it. But in fact, it was like 4 a.m. when we were doing this. So then cuts, basically like we have a range like 15th to 25th card, so the middle of the deck, and we just chop randomly between these 2 points, and we reverse the order of the deck, right? So by the end, you would have like, for example, from D1 to DC -1, where it's the cut, and then from the cut to the top, and the top and the bottom would be then glued. And then yes, this would be just concatenation of the 2 parts. And this is the code for cut, right? Top and bottom, you get a random integer between, and then you just like glue them together. And finally, smash shuffle. This one is a bit more complicated. So again, I tried to formalize it here, but effectively it's like taking a deck in half and then perfectly cut, like perfectly doing like a riffle shuffle, or almost like a pile shuffle on 2 piles, right? If you take and you perfectly put it in the middle, you would basically get a pile shuffle of 2. And it's basically that, but with a sense of randomness of the order in which the cards you put in. Because when you do a smash shuffle, you can miss, and then the card doesn't, like cards don't go perfectly one after the other, but like one card goes in front, one card goes like behind, and then you can like there's randomness introduced because we're not perfect when we do the smash shuffle. So we have another parameter to take care of that. This is called the degree of randomness, and this is like a basically a okay. So this is the part of the code. But what we do, yes, is we just split the deck in half and we inject either card 1 or card 2. And if we meet a certain threshold that we want like some randomness introduced, then we flip the order. So we put like the second card first and then the first. So there's like, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, but then it might be like we put the 6, 5 instead, and then like 8, 7, and then we go like 9, 10. So there's this like interleaving of the cards the way it's introduced is in this clause. But yeah, smash shuffling, we just try to imitate the fact that like when you put cards together, you don't always put them side by side. And this degree of what's it called, randomness is what how we control this. And then just the number of smashes, right? So you could do it 10 times, you could do it like 2 times. And yeah, so afterwards we just define the deck. So we have a deck. Deck is just like numbers from 1 to 40. As simple as that. And now that we have this, we have another problem. And this problem is, how do we measure uncertainty, right? How do we make sure that this deck is random or it's not random? Because if you know all the cards, even if it's computer generated, it's not random to you, but it's random in the sense that there's no order in terms of the cards, or like some pattern that always repeats when you shuffle, right? Because if you do a pile shuffle, it's truly not random. We'll see that it's really like you might know all the cards, and if you don't know all the cards, maybe to you and to your opponent it's random, but in the sense of randomness, in this like kind of mathematical sense, it's not really random because you know where all the cards are. Now, yeah, so how do we measure this? It's a really kind of also philosophical question at the end of the day, but we ended up using entropy. So the entropy is just a quantity of randomness. I'll show you the equation. Yeah, it's here actually. This is entropy, and yeah, there's a link for it, but it's like a measure of uncertainty of randomness in a system. So for example, in the context of cards, it's like, for example, if a deck is perfectly ordered, it has low entropy, but if it's like fully shuffled, it has high entropy. And in this context, since it's log 2, it's measured in bits, but there's all kinds of ways that you can apply entropy. And then this is the measurement we decided to use. And so what the idea was is, okay, we have entropy as some sort of kind of measurement of randomness. Now, how can we know what is the most random thing we can possibly get? There's theoretical limit to the entropy, so we can theoretically know for 40 cards what's the entropy of it, but then we can also get it from like computer generated, and these numbers are not the same, and this is something that threw us off, right? So I'll show you actually here. So theoretical entropy, it has a different equations. It's basically a log base 2 of the number of possible arrangements, and if you have 40 cards, it's 40 factorial. So blah blah, you can use this approximation. It's not relevant, but at the end it's basically log 2 of 40 factorial, right? Because it's just the number of permutations, and then 40 cards, so 40 permutations, 40 factorial. And the theoretical entropy is 159 bits. Theoretical, right? If the world was truly random. But for example, for fully random shuffle, given the shuffle method of the computer that we have, which is pseudo-random, it's actually 16.6 bits. So there's a huge gap between what we perceive as random in our like computer and computer randomness and what is truly random, right? The truly random, it's a much higher number. So we will not consider this, but we will consider as the benchmark the computer randomness, which is a fully random, what we refer to here, or is like the empirical entropy, right? This is theoretical entropy, and this should be the empirical entropy. So going back to this, we decided to use entropy as a benchmark for randomness, and then we basically run simulations. So simulation on fully random, you'll see this function, we defined it before. It's basically the random shuffle of the given to us by the computer. But then we go and use other techniques, right? So for example, for a cut, right? A number of simulations. For the number of simulations, we have here 100,000. We also used a million before, but the numbers are very similar. So yes, for a cut, the entropy is 3.3. So it's very low, but it is random, right? Because you are having this range between 15 and 20 where you always cut the deck. So if you cut always at kind of a different place, even in these 10 cards, the entropy should still be not zero. But for example, for as I'll find it here. Yes, for pile shuffling, I skipped it. For pile shuffling, it's actually 0 bits, right? Because pile shuffling is not random. Now going back to what I discussed before is what could be perceived as random to us, because if you don't know the deck and the cards seem to be decluttered, it's not truly random. So you still need a random technique to make sure that your opponent's not stacking you, right? Because even if it looks like, okay, a whirlwind is here and then a Shura is here, maybe they will not draw that together, maybe it's truly random, but that's not the case. Like, you really need a random technique. And pile shuffling, I've heard it's actually like forbidden at Worlds, because it's like not random and that's how people stack. And in fact, this is truly like this also confirms how entropy works. So if something is 0, it means it's not random, right? So pile shuffling is not random regardless of how many piles. So if here we have 4, if we put 8, it should still be like 0. It's truly not random. Now, yes, cuts are slightly random, let's say. And then smash shuffle with 0.2% randomness, so like missing, like you miss 20% of the cards, let's say. You have 8.9 bits, right? And consider that our benchmark and the maximum we're going for is 16. So yeah, this is almost a half. So we're not quite there, but one smash shuffle with 20% randomness is relatively good already. It's better than a cut or a pile shuffle. So finally, we have the last piece of work, which is we want to simulate on multiple, I want to show you a graph on multiple randomness values. So here 20%, but below you'll see that we have this range. And then we also want to count the number of smashes, right? Because here we just do it once. And I've heard from chess that there was a thing in the Pokemon community that if you shuffle 7 times, smash shuffle is truly random. So we were trying to also test this hypothesis, basically, that's to see if this is true. And we have basically ran this thing for several times, for several randomness values and for several number of smash shuffles. And I've plotted this here for you. So as you can see on this graph, we have randomness values on the right. So this is the colors of the curves. And then we have the number of smashes. So the number of smash shuffles you do with the deck. For example, for a 25% cards missed when you smash shuffle, so relatively random, you go very, very quickly to the 16.6, which is a fully random empirical entropy max that we can get with 40 cards. Almost by 3 or 4 shuffles, you're there. So if you're doing it relatively random, right? Like, of course, you could always stack. Like, you could always put the top card on top, and then it's not random, even though that's not what we're considering here, obviously. But yes, if you're if you're not trying to stack, and if you're missing some cards, you're not really putting it perfectly, then very close after 3 or 4 shuffles, you should reach a kind of the empirical benchmark entropy max. But if you're slightly less random, so only basically 5% of the cards miss in your smash, then it's gonna take a long time to actually become random, right? Because all of these cards are fitting perfectly, and by the 5th or 6th, you could actually predict where they are. We are here talking, in fact, more about prediction rather than randomness, right? Because you could have a stacked deck that appears random. I'm trying to also emphasize this. But yes, so this is basically the graph, and as you can see, of course, if you're not perfectly pushing them in, it seems, then by the 6th or 7th or 8th smash shuffle, your deck should be fully random. So your deck should reach the empirical entropy benchmark we set ourselves by using the shuffle method of the computer. So I have used this in my last run at YCS Birmingham, and I've really tried to shuffle like 10, 12 times and not even do pile shuffles. And also another point, and actually I was drawing pretty nice. So another point I want to also discuss is the fact that pile shuffling, often people say, yes, like it's used to declutter your cards. But if you correctly smash shuffle like 7, 8, 10 times, the cluttering of the card doesn't matter, because after that point your deck is as random as it can get. So you could technically you can prepare your deck like how you would do a deck profile, and then do like 8 or 10 times smash shuffle, and it would be as random as you did like 15 gazillion pile shuffles prior to shuffling it. So the only thing that matters is the fact that you smash shuffle correctly and not stack, obviously. So yeah, as you can see, the entropy of pile shuffling is 0 bits. So you could like do 10 pile shuffles, and this is additive, so it will not your entropy will not increase. So the only way for it to increase is for you to do smash shuffles of 6 or upwards, right? Depending on how cleanly you're doing them. But if you even do like 9 or 10 smash shuffles, even if you're doing them cleanly, you should be good to go. Same goes for your opponent. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I didn't rush through it. If you want this Jupyter notebook that we used, you can DM me on Discord, and I will send you the file. You just need to run it in the Python environment. You can run all these queries. Yeah, Python 12.7, install some of these things, and it should run. Yeah, I hope we also formalize this somewhat well, and in order to illustrate what some of these things we were doing are. And yeah, with that, I would like to conclude the video, and thank you all for watching. And in any case, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.